the establishment of international laws and selling democracy away to the corporate powers. We see this also play out in abuse of anti-terrorism laws, where places like the DHS and civil vigilantes like Infraguard or the NSA are all working together as a large criminal Gestapo. Fusion centers were created in the wake of the 2001 terrorist attacks. I won't go into how this was an international ploy too deeply, but to me clearly an insurance scam. I'll break away from the writing briefly. They found the passports of the terrorists on the floor outside of the crash site, from a crash where the fuel from the plane got so hot it was melting the steel beams and created a demolition that looked like a controlled demolition. They found the passports. That should be enough to raise alarm bells. Now it's pretty much common knowledge that it was an inside job. The guy who owned the towers put on insurance for anti-terrorism. The guy who, I think, ate breakfast or lunch there every day at the top, a specific meal, famous for it, that one day he didn't turn up. He had to go to the dermatologist. I won't go into more than that. It's up to you to do the research. But this became a warrant for the USA to build up this surveillance network to begin with. Fusion centers were made to gather intelligence, all in attempt to share and fuse with every law enforcement body and intelligence agency, all in efforts to stop terrorism and monitor US citizens. Soon after the DHS came into being in November 2002, through the passage of the Homeland Security Act to coordinate Homeland Security efforts starting up 2003. Two contributors to how it works were Yevgeny Primakov from the KGB and Marcus Wolf from the Stasi. These people are not known for protecting citizens, but oppressing them. The Stasi developed something called Zersetzung, translated as decomposition of someone's life, using psychological operations and dividing people to suicide or keeping them quiet through harassment. The DHS has played a key role in the creation, funding, and operation of fusion centers, providing resources, funding, and technical assistance. The center served as a hub for information collection, analysis, and dissemination, enabling to enhance situational awareness and response capabilities in areas ranging from terrorism to natural disasters, criminal activity, and public safety threats. However, these centers have been spending billions of dollars and found no terrorist activity of any consequence, nothing that has ever had any value, and so they included crimes and investigations of people who may be criminals, upon where they could surveil a person to death, and this would enable for funding to keep them afloat. From what I heard is that according to Barack Obama, all you needed was two people to claim that you were a bank robber, a pedophile, and swear to it. There was no proof needed, no trying to figure out if there was any ulterior motive. Anything would go, where something would be taken to the FISA court, according to whistleblower Karen Stewart, a data analysis for the NSA. Supposedly, you could make a request to make a false dossier on the person and then given to the fusion center nearest to the person, taking it to then civilian vigilantes such as Infraguard, and then use crime gangs to stalk and harass you. I believe it is power transfer that can be seen in intelligence agencies through whistleblowers like Karen Stewart. She was a former NSA data analyst who wrote a series of top-secret reports to help Operations Iraqi Freedom. The Pentagon and top NSA management state it saved 2,000 lives, supposedly. She was denied a double promotion and credit for her work, instead given to the woman her boss was sleeping with at the time. When she went to the Inspector General, she was attacked just for asking about why her promotion and credit was given onto someone else. She was accused of mysterious breaches after a disinformation campaign, and then slowly forced out of the NSA. She then had the NSA security begin stalking and harassing her 24/7, following her to the grocery stores or home and work, etc. They fired her but gave her a partial retirement in 2010, where Karen proceeded to sue the NSA around 2015 after 4 years of the talking and harassment seemed to stop. Her lawyer was able to subpoena the paperwork that indicated that a top NSA SCS manager had been breaking into her home. Now, for those that don't know, the SCS is the Special Collection Service of the NSA. They bug houses and they will go into foreign countries if they have to do this. She ended up moving to Florida to take care of her parents who had fallen ill, and the NSA had made up lies to spread suspicion of Karen, telling them to get civil vigilantes, also known as InfraGard, spreading bogus claims, informing them on how Karen was a threat or a terrible person, and they could just not quite prosecute her for anything. Stalking and harassment followed, 24/7 coming from these civil vigilantes. But finding no evidence, they began using forms of weaponry on her that are far more esoteric, and I will go later on into detail about. It's people like this who question the authorities in such groups who end up being kicked out, and those who are bought out by money or have little care for consequence move up. I believe this is a pivotal piece of national power transfer. What we are dealing with is a criminal Gestapo under the guise of anti-terrorism, developing methods for spectrum dominance and subtle eugenics. In 2012, Bill Binney, a whistleblower that called out to show that federal agents are conducting surveillance on every US citizen and were targeting whoever they please. Many federal agents had come forward to whistleblow how they were made to target regular civilians. Simply for coming forward as pro-life, these agents were pressured to put more and more people upon this targeting list, giving them bonuses if they were able to do so. This was to legitimize more federal funding, all hidden behind the guise of anti-terrorism. They seemed to be able to put any person on this terrorist watch list without any real reason or due process. And the FBI is putting lists together targeting people based on political beliefs, all through financial surveillance and digital monitoring, labeling people as potential domestic violence extremists. This also extends into gaming communities too. I'm going to add, many people online have been scouted out to be put on these lists. Though they work with bankers mainly, so you have Domestic Security Alliance Council, DSAC, so FBI, DHS, that work with 650 of the largest companies in the world, and they account for around 60 to 70% of the US gross domestic product. They communicate in controlled access portals, and any American who opposes firearm legislation, easing of immigration restrictions, or COVID mandates is someone who could be potentially labeled as a domestic violence extremist according to the FBI. The federal government and banks use merchant category codes to profile people, where they profile people for anything they purchase, including sporting goods, camping goods, guns, or religious texts. The federal government is working together with big bank using big tech to target civilians who are legal and following constitutional rights from this viewpoint to further a globalist agenda. This is all playing into a part of power transfer while pursuing their political agenda. This is only on the surface, but there are groups out there right now, worldwide, continuing to pursue this power transfer so that the groups may engage in enforcing global politics, taking the power out of your politicians' hands, and even controlling the world stage right now, buying your democracy. Bringing it back to the first half of the video, where I'm highlighting how elements of psychology were gatekept, and that on the verge of changing things, the system, the entirety of mental health changed the model for modern day diagnosis for these spectrum disorders, or to draw attention away from lateral and vertical thinking. You had MK Ultra around this time. You had the alien phenomena. You had spiritual consumerism, a huge shift in the music. This was a shift in culture around the time when power transfer went full swing. Even to this day, this psychology is still applied. There's an FBI internal memo from 1968 that mentions the employment of the Grateful Dead as an avenue to channel youth dissent and rebellion into more benign and non-threatening directions, where entertainment, media, mysticism, and drugs play a vital role in keeping many young persons into consumerism rather than science and politics. This is an ongoing war of cultural engineers, all in bed with those governing global politics, once more through blackmail and bribery, keeping society entrained and more so unaware of how to be great people, creating maladaptive psychology, ill people who will be unaware of what's happening with power transfer, while also creating a smokescreen, an easy path covering up human experimentation and silencing the masses. Luciferianism and Satanism are great examples. These are used and pushed onto people with cluster B personality disorder, in where you will find celebrities or people that work in intelligence agencies following these ideologies so that they are kept in line and entrained with the agenda. A lot of them too involved with human trafficking and things like that. But it's also pushed out onto image boards, and you'll find things like 4chan or 8kun, where a lot of, unfortunately, rejects of society, people who are most likely autistic, have Asperger's or schizotypal thinking, can be further pushed down the line into developing these cluster B type behaviors, where you'll see iconography like Patrick Bateman, the American Psycho, idolized, or terms of the alpha and beta and now sigma to justify psychopathology. Originally, alpha and beta were Russian psychoanalytical tools to describe extroversion and introversion, but unfortunately it's twisted and it starts to appeal to people with the lateral and vertical thinking, maladaptive philosophies that bear some meaning and truths to the world, very convincing, but not for a developed human. And this creates degeneracy. Social Darwinism is a very powerful thing when coming to symbology, because you see predators whose eyes that face forward, much like a human, will also read expressions as human-like. More wiser and bold, and the herbivores will have eyes on the side of their head, more docile and stupid. And it's aesthetics like these that are very potent on unconscious people that make you more bias towards these types of philosophies. And so